So as some of you may have already guessed, I'm a massive theatre fan and I go and see shows very, very often. And most of the time my theatre visits are nothing but wonderful and amazing. But sadly, there are some exceptions. About a couple of months ago, I bought myself a ticket to go and see Phantom of the Opera at Her Majesty's Theatre. Now Phantom is quite an expensive show and is a show that I don't go to very often because of that reason. But I'd heard that one of my favourite performers was going to be going back to Phantom for only a few nights to play Christine, almost 6 months after having left the cast. I'm not exactly sure why. I think the current Christines at the time were just not available. I think one of them was ill and one of them was on holiday, so they had to bring back an old Christine. And obviously I was very excited about this because I'd already seen this performer in Phantom previously and I'd loved her as in the role and I really wanted to see her again, so I was like, yay! So with that in mind, I decided to buy a full price, £60 ticket to go and see Phantom. Normally when I go to shows I buy like either cheap tickets or like I get discounts, student discounts, or I queue up for day seats and stuff, so it's very rare for me to like pay like that much money for a ticket. But obviously it was like a one-off thing and I thought it'd be worth it, so I was like, okay, yay. Anyway, this was on a Thursday and I had uni that day until about 5:30 in the afternoon. This meant that I didn't get home until around 6:30. And I was very, very tired, incredibly tired, but obviously at the same time very excited. But because I'm me and I'm almost always late for stuff, I ended up having to rush to the theatre because I didn't leave the house until around 7, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not going to make it. And I had to actually get a taxi to the theatre, something that I don't do often. I usually just get the tube, but yeah, I was like, oh, I'm going to be late, and I did not want to be late. I hate being late for shows. I've never been late for shows, apart from once. That was my second time. Phantom was my second time. Anyway. So yeah, I'm in a taxi, very annoyed and, stressed about the possibility that I'll be late for the show, and, just looking at my watch every 2 minutes, like checking the time, until finally the taxi driver parked outside the theatre and I literally jumped outside the car and literally rushed into the theatre. I was actually running. It wasn't a pretty sight. Anyway, so I got lucky and I actually made it in time. I got to the theatre at, I think it was like 7:28 or something, and the show starts at 7:30. So I went in feeling very embarrassed and guilty about the fact that I had to make loads of people stand up to get to my seat. I actually had an amazing seat as well. I was in row F in the centre, which gave an incredible view. When I got there I was like, wow. And as I was going to my seat, I saw a man who was meant to be sitting next to me for the rest of the performance kind of looking at me and smirking at me and like giving a, oh, I find it funny that you're late, but not in a mean way look, kind of like half laughing, which was a bit awkward. And I was like, oh god, that's embarrassing that the guy who's going to be sat next to me for the rest of the performance is laughing at the fact that I was late. But at the same time I was like, oh, well, at least he's laughing, and so he seems like a nice person. He'd given me a smile, so I was like, okay, that's good. I think I'm going to enjoy this performance. I couldn't have been more wrong. As soon as the show started, I realised that I should never have even thought of the word nice and that man in the same sentence. During the whole overture music, he was talking constantly to his, I imagine, wife, very loudly as well. And I thought, okay, well maybe he just doesn't know that the show started already, maybe he just doesn't realise it yet, and as soon as one of the actors says a line, then he's probably gonna stop talking. But no! The talking continued throughout the whole of Act 1. I'm not even kidding. About every 3-4 minutes I hear him say really random words that I don't understand in a foreign language while I'm trying to concentrate on the performance. So obviously that was very annoying. And at first I thought, well, clearly I can't be the only person irritated by this man's loud comments throughout the show. And I was hoping that someone in the audience, or an usher preferably, would come and ask the guy to stop talking. But no one did. No one, literally no one in the audience. It seemed like no one even noticed that he was talking, even though he was so loud. And it was just, I was thinking, am I dreaming? Am I going mad? I think he was about halfway through the first act when a few people started to look at him and kind of give him the please stop talking look. But he didn't seem to notice at all. And I actually did as well. I mean, I was obviously sat next to him, so it was easy for me to look at him with an angry face every time he spoke. And I did it. I seriously did it. Every time he was speaking, which was every 2 minutes, I'd look at him and sigh very loudly in hope that he would understand that I'm bothered by his constant talking. But he didn't. And that was making me crazy. So I spent a great deal of Act 1 trying to think of ways to tell this man to not talk during the performance. I have to mention that this was like a middle-aged man, and obviously, like I said before, he wasn't from England. He was quite a foreign person. So and he was quite manly and big, and I was a bit scared of him, maybe. Let's put it that way. I didn't know if it would be right for me to ask him to be quiet, especially because I'm like this young person, and I had assumed that he was here on holiday, obviously, and I was like, okay, maybe he doesn't know that he's not meant to talk or whatever. And I was just kind of trying to think of ways that I could politely ask him to not talk without offending him. Then Act 1 finished, and I was just kind of like basically thinking of different strategies to get the guy to basically shut up. And that's when the man started talking to me. He looked at me and went, "Did you enjoy the show?" And I was like, "What?" Obviously I didn't say that. Instead I said, "Yes, I did, thank you, did you?" And he went, yeah, I enjoyed it, it's really nice." And in my head I was going, liar. Because obviously if he really had enjoyed the show, he wouldn't have been talking through 90% of the first act. So anyway, that kind of started a conversation between us. He started asking me about what I study and like what I do and all that crap, and how he was telling me about how he's on holiday now with his wife for a few days, and how he was excited about seeing London and all that stuff. And the more I kind of listened to him and spoke to him, the more I kind of felt a bit sad for misjudging him, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm just wrong, and he does seem like an actual nice person. And then I thought, okay, let's just give the guy another chance. Maybe he'll be better in the second act and keep it quiet. A few minutes before the second act started, he went to me, "English theatres are so weird. They sell ice creams and food, and people are allowed to have drinks in here. Where we live," and he was from Malta, "people aren't allowed to bring any food inside the theatre, and everything's a lot more organised than it is here." And I was just thinking, how dare you? I mean, you were so disrespectful through the first act, and now you're calling other people here disrespectful for bringing food inside the theatre? What? Seriously, that really annoyed me, what he said about our theatres being unorganised when he was being so disrespectful in the first act. But I still thought I'd give him another chance, and I was quite positive that he'd tone it down a bit in the second act. Needless to say, he didn't. So the second act starts, and as you can imagine, he started talking again. I'm sat there thinking, here we go again. Again, this man was constantly talking every few minutes to his wife about some random things, so I don't even know what they were about, because obviously it was in a different language. I mean, I wish I could at least understand the language. Then at least I might know what kind of things he was talking about, because I can't even imagine how someone could have that many stuff to say to their wife when they're at a performance, like every 2 minutes. Surely by some point he should have run out of things to say. But he didn't, he kept talking. And it wasn't just limited to talking either. He was like full on pointing at people on stage, and like his arm would go up every few minutes. I'm actually surprised that the people behind him didn't complain, because obviously it must have been hard for them to watch the show if every few minutes an arm goes up in the air pointing at people on stage. What the hell? It was just very, very irritating. Even more irritating than the first act. I seriously lost all hope of getting this man to stop talking by that point. It was only about 20 minutes through Act 2 that finally a young guy who sat in front of me turned back to this man next to me and shushed him. And that was it. From then on, the man next to me was quiet for the rest of the performance, and the guy in front of me became my idol. Seriously, I actually wanted to give the guy in front of me a big hug for what he did. I mean, it was a miracle. I just wished he'd shushed him at the beginning of Act 1 instead. But anyway, at least I got to enjoy the last 20 minutes of the show without any distractions from the man next to me, so that was nice. Overall though, obviously I did enjoy the performance as a whole. I mean, Gina Beck was absolutely amazing, like I knew she'd be. And Phantom's just a great show anyway, and I had a brilliant view, and everything was great apart from the man next to me. So I'm still glad that I went to see the show. But yeah, I definitely wish I didn't have to experience it with an irritating man sat next to me throughout the show. Some people